what we'll start with is just sort of a brief overview of what Pinterest is. I think some of you may be users already, some of you may be new to the platform, so I just wanted to share insights on how consumers use it before we dive into how to leverage it as a marketing platform. So before we jump into the details, I sort of wanted to take a moment for everyone to think, when you hear about Pinterest or when you see Pinterest, like what are some of the things that come to mind? You may have some ideas or kind of what Pinterest may be. Some of it, you may think it's a social network. You've kind of similar to Facebook and Instagram. You may also think it's like a photo sharing site. Or some people may think it's primarily for crafty people who are really into DIY. And these are sort of some of the themes that we hear when we talk to partners or users. And in fact, this isn't the whole story. Pinterest is not just for crafty DIY folks. It's not necessarily a social network either. So I'll kind of talk through what the user journey looks like. So this is how we describe Pinterest. It's the world's catalog of ideas that's personalized for you. So note that we don't really use the word images. It's not just about taking pictures and uploading it online. It's really ideas, the things that you can take and do in your actual life. And it's very personalized for you. So if we break down the product, we'll kind of go through 3 core pieces of the product, and one being the home feed. So this is the place where you land on when you first sign up to the platform, and also when you first open up the app. And you'll notice that the content that flows through is very much personalized for you. So all the content is based off of interests that you have, brands that you follow. You may be interested in certain bloggers. So all of this should be kind of tailored to your tastes, your needs, your aspirations. I'm getting married this summer, hence why there's a wedding dress image up at the top. If you're really into cars, you would see cars, watches, home decor, and so forth. The second use case for Pinterest is the search function. So if you think of home feed as a place where you're sort of browsing, kind of like flipping through a magazine, the search is where you're proactively looking for things that are of interest to you. So you may be looking for gift wrapping ideas, for example, and so you would type in gift wrapping, and then there will be a content feed of ideas that you can take into the real world. It's slightly different from Google search in a sense that for Google, you go when you know exactly what you want. You know exactly the color, the size, the brand of what you want. With Pinterest, it's more about discovery. So it's that kind of fuzzy phase when you're like, I want a pair of shoes. I don't know exactly what type I want or what brand I want. Or I'm looking for ideas to how to host a dinner party, and you don't know exactly what you need to do or you buy. That's kind of the moment when you go into Pinterest to discover new ideas. And the third section is your own profile. So from a user perspective, this is a space where you save your ideas. So you've done your browsing, you've done your searches, you have this wealth of ideas that you're interested in, and you can categorize them, you can curate them in a way that makes sense to you. And the way Pinterest works is that you would save them into individual boards. So you may have like a shoe board, you could have a food board, you could have a home decor board, and so forth, to be able to categorize them and come back later to actually buy the items, make the items, cook the items, etc. So again, Pinterest, I know we have this kind of perception that it's for weddings, it's for DIY, and a little bit of a girly platform. But in fact, people use it for various reasons. And it could be things like, what should I cook for dinner tonight? Finding dinner ideas. Valentine's Day is coming up, so it could be things like gifts for her, presents to give to your partner. It could also be things for home decor. I live in a very small flat in London, so this one's actually helpful for me. But how to design or how to decor your home when you have very limited space. If you're into fashion, you could kind of fine-tune things like business casual, how to dress up to work. If you're into fitness, it could be things like running gear. This person is also an avid Nike fan, as you can probably tell. So you can really essentially curate content in the way that makes sense to you and in a way that's most helpful to you. So our mission is really to help people discover and do what they love. Again, it's really not about broadcasting who you are. It's not about, oh, I went to this, lovely cafe with my friend, take a selfie and post it on Pinterest. It's more about, I have an event to go to tomorrow. I want to figure out how to style myself, go into Pinterest, find ideas, and in a way that's very helpful to you. And I heard this at one of our meetings. One of our co-founders mentioned this, and I thought it was quite useful. Pinterest is not about, it's about yourself and not about the selfie. So that's kind of the difference to think about how you would differentiate the way in which Facebook or Twitter works or Instagram works versus how Pinterest works. Just from a user mindset, it's quite different. So we know that there's a wealth of information and ideas that are on Pinterest, and one of the key questions we get is, well, like where do all of this come from? Is there like a magical space where we collect all of this? And basically, 75% of the content on Pinterest comes from businesses. So these are brands, publishers, retailers like yourselves, or small businesses, and people are on the platform to find content from businesses. The remaining 25% are things from bloggers, or it could also be like Tumblr images or Instagram images, but primarily people are on there to find business content. And the way that the content is brought into the platform, there's 3 key ways. Some of you may be familiar with this already, but there is a Pinterest browser extension. Basically, this means that anytime you're browsing on the website, you click on this button, and you're able to save the images on the site and store it onto your profile. You could also implement save buttons. So for anyone who has their own website, you can implement the save button. And basically what this allows people to do is, if any of your consumers or customers are browsing your website, they could click on the save button and save your content onto Pinterest. So it's really free distribution and free reach for your business. And the third part, this is probably where you have the most control, is to develop your own business profile. So this is the space where you can curate your content that you have, categorize them in a way that's meaningful to you. And again, use Pinterest as an additional channel to reach more customers. So what do people do when they're on Pinterest? There's 3 core engagement metrics that we look at. So again, if you kind of use the platform as an individual user, you probably know some of these actions that we see. But when someone finds your content and are interested in your content, people will normally close up. So you tap to close up to see it in a bigger image. They could save it onto their individual boards, or they could click through to the original website. So again, this is sort of a differentiator versus some of the other platforms. Our mission is to help people discover and do the things they love, and so we're not trying to sort of capture the people within Pinterest and keep them there. We actually encourage people to click through to the original website, either buy the item, find the recipe of their choice, read the article to find more information. So our mission is also to help drive traffic back to the original website. So all of these engagement metrics essentially lead to an upside for your business. So if you think about, people coming back to your site, that's additional traffic. If you have a sign-up page or registration form, you can help drive conversions there. If you have an e-commerce page, if people are clicking through onto the pin, we do find that a lot of people actually convert and buy the item that they find on Pinterest. So if we think about it from a marketing perspective, I'm sure you're all aware of the typical marketing funnel where you start from awareness all the way down to conversions. The types of people that you're able to reach on Pinterest is really sort of this middle funnel people. So people who are in the consideration mindset. I did a quick search on boards with the title of to buy. You can actually see thousands of boards in there with people who have things to buy or to buy boards. And so people are on the platform to proactively find things to buy, which is, again, it's quite different from other social platforms where they're there to see content from their friends, content from potentially news articles. Pinterest is more about this shopping mindset of wanting to find things that are relevant to them. So it's much easier to drive these types of people from the consideration mindset down to the action, which in this case would be a purchase. So we also have done some third-party research. It's not just Pinterest claiming all of this. So this was a research done by Kleiner and Perkins in the US, and we found that 55% of the people, Pinterest users use the platform to find and shop for products. So you'll see a pretty vast difference versus the other online platforms where it's not necessarily the shopping mindset platform. It's more about social activity and social engagement, whereas Pinterest is all about yourself and your own discovery. And so we see a lot of people associating it with shopping. And in fact, we do see that people shop the products either online or offline after they've left Pinterest. So again, this is a third-party research that was done. 93% of Pinterest users use it to plan purchases. 72% have actually made a purchase offline, and 52% have made a purchase online. So we do see a lot of these downstream conversions happening. So let's kind of look through more tactically what you can do to leverage Pinterest as a marketing channel. And the first step, this sounds really obvious, but it's very important, but try and use Pinterest as an individual user. It's really important to get this right because as you start using the platform, you're sort of get a sense of what type of content works for you. You know, what kind of pins makes you want to save them or makes you want to click through. And that's having that sort of user mindset or that user sense is quite critical as you approach Pinterest as a marketing channel as well. The other upside of using Pinterest as an individual user is that you will also be able to capture any upcoming trends. This one was quite an interesting one. I think many of you probably know, last year there was this huge trend on hygge. I'm probably not pronouncing it right still, but the Danish kind of style of living, that was a big trend that we saw around the Christmas season. With Pinterest, we actually saw a small bump as early as last year, and then we saw a significant spike happening from around mid-August. So a lot of this trend pickup starts early on Pinterest. Another trend that we're seeing, this is actually quite timely because it's a February event, is something called Galentines Day. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. I was quite new to this, but it's basically instead of celebrating Valentine's Day, you celebrate Galentines Day, which is to celebrate your friendship, not necessarily your romance, I guess. And so again, we saw an uptick in 2015. We saw an even bigger spike in 2016. And so this year, we're kind of expecting this to become a bigger trend within Pinterest. And the last kind of example, I thought this was kind of interesting too, is she sheds. I don't know if anyone's heard of this. This is new to me too, but if you've heard of man caves, so places for men to enjoy their downtime. There's the female equivalent of it, which is called she sheds. For this, we see sort of an uptick during the summer. I'm actually not exactly sure why that happens, but kind of every summer we're seeing an uptick, and we're seeing it increase over the years as well. So these are kind of some quirky trends that you can also find on Pinterest to help you sort of provide insights for your business as well. And it also works very beautifully for seasonal events. So the nice thing about Pinterest is that people start planning activities quite early. So if you look at Christmas, for example, people start pinning Christmas content as early as August and September. So you can really leverage this lead-up time to distribute your content as well. People use it a lot for Mother's Day, Father's Day, Glastonbury, back to school, Halloween. We see a huge uptick right before the actual day. And so again, you can kind of think of this as a way to reach people in a unique way and capture the upcoming trends that are coming. From a tactical standpoint, these are sort of the step-by-step guides on how to use Pinterest as a marketing channel. So the first one is to open up a business profile. It sounds obvious, but of course very important. This is the space where you can use to showcase your best content and curate in a way that makes sense for your brand. If you open up a business profile, it adds your logo to any pin that comes from your website. And you're also able to get access to website analytics, which is a free tool that you can use. Another one is leveraging the Save button. I mentioned this earlier before, but if you have a website, you can add a Save button on your website so that anyone that's browsing your website can click on that button and save your product or your content on their profile. So again, it's an organic distribution. You really don't have to do anything. Once you have the button implemented, you let it run, and people will automatically start pinning your content and distributing it within the platform. And analytics, again, this is a free tool. We have an analytics tool that helps you analyze, what types of pins are you getting the most impressions in? Which ones are your popular boards? Who are your audience? Like, what types of people are engaging with your content? You can leverage these insights to help further optimize your profile on Pinterest. And the fourth piece is promoted pins. This may be somewhat new. We launched this a little less than a year ago, and basically it's very similar to Facebook and Twitter promotions as well. But we have a self-service tool, free to use, where you can boost any of your content. So if you have a particular product or a particular campaign that you really want to push forward within Pinterest, you can use our self-service tool to help boost that content, and your ad would appear either in the home feed or in the search function, search results. Sorry. Another tip is to share your profile in other channels. So I'm guessing many of you already have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram accounts that you're quite active in, and you already have a follower base or an audience. And so definitely leverage that. If you activate a new Pinterest profile, or sometimes even if you create a board that you're very proud of, share that link on other channels, and that's another way for you to increase your audience size on Pinterest as well. And it's also another way to engage with your customers. People may be used to seeing, text information or sale information from Facebook. With Pinterest, they get more of a visual story, a visual narrative of what your brand is about. So it's sort of another story that you can tell directly to your customers. And lastly, kind of to go through the creative best practices. I've spoken with a lot of partners, and it seems like Pinterest can feel a bit daunting to start with because it's such a strong visual platform. People don't really know where to get started. But in fact, if you follow some of these best practices and kind of keep in mind that the pins are ideas, the creative process should become easier as well. So the 3 key factors to a successful creative on Pinterest is to be helpful, to be beautiful, and to be actionable. So again, keep in mind that these aren't just, people are not on the platform just to look at pretty pictures. I think Instagram can sort of play that part, but with Pinterest, people want ideas. They want to be able to click through, find more information, and act on it in real life. So the content should not just be beautiful, but they should be helpful and actionable as well. So how do we go about doing this, right? Detailed descriptions. Underneath the image, so the pin image, there is a section to include your descriptions. And there's a tendency for people and for brands to make it as short as possible. Sometimes I see brands also using hashtags because I think that works in other platforms. With Pinterest, it doesn't work. Hashtags don't work. If you're selling a product, let's say if you're selling a shirt, don't just include the product name. Add some more context to it. So how would you, if it's a black skirt, how would you contextualize it? What kind of event should you wear it to? What kind of season? Should you wear it with heels, or should you wear it with sneakers for a casual look? Add that sort of color and context around it, because that's the type of information that people are looking for. And you don't need to be too shy about trying to make it as short as possible. Interestingly enough, on Pinterest, copy is quite welcome. People want to read information from each of the brands. Another tip is the vertical aspect ratio. In this example here, you can tell that the vertical image on the left appears much larger than the image on the right. And that's because our horizontal axis is fixed on Pinterest. You'll always just see two columns, particularly on mobile. So the more vertical you are, essentially the bigger you appear, especially on mobile. So we do have some recommendations on the aspect ratio. So 2 to 3 ratio is sort of the optimal size that we recommend. But just keep in mind that you do want to avoid like a square image. I know it's a bit confusing because square usually works on Instagram. But with Pinterest, we recommend not to do that just because your image will appear very small. And the third point is compelling images. So if you have products of different color or different sizes, really play around with the product that you have. So you can see like an example here, you can place different color variations. You could do something similar with sizes. You can also play around with background images. So this one is a white background, so it kind of blends in with the platform. But you could add a bit of a color to it to make it stand out, for example. Yeah. And also, it's not in the example here, but think about creating lifestyle shots as well. So instead of just, white background and product shots, if you show images of people using it and adding a little bit of a lifestyle or context around it, that also works quite well on Pinterest. And text overlays. So again, it's a bit confusing because I know other platforms discourage it. With Pinterest, we actually encourage this. You don't want to go crazy and put sale, promotion, all of that. But the purpose of the text overlay is, again, to be more helpful. So instead of just the image, if you put "Get Your Bake On," it kind of makes you interested in what the content is about. So if the image itself doesn't portray the story or the kind of the narrative that you want to tell, play around with the text overlay to see if that helps to drive further engagement. And also call to action. There's kind of two spaces where you can add a call to action. So one is just on the image itself. So this one is an example, I believe, with John Lewis. So create your own country garden. So they have a beautiful imagery of sort of ideas on how to design your garden, and they add a call to action on top of it. You can also add call to actions on your pinned descriptions. So there you can be a little bit more promotion-like. So things like, buy now or, today's sale. Those kind of promotion messaging you can add in your pinned description to help encourage people to click through to your website. And tasteful branding. This does require some additional design work. So it's really, you would need to weigh out the resource costs for this, but this is an example with Ted Baker where they've added their logo onto the image itself. This helps to add credibility to your content. When people are browsing on Pinterest, they see something branded. It's from a business, so you trust it, and you know that it would be a very helpful content. So we do see higher engagement with branded images. So just to summarize here, the first step is really to just be playful and start pinning. The nice thing about Pinterest is that you can really pin as much as you want. You don't need to go too crazy about the timing of the pin or pinning frequency. I would try and be playful, kind of see what type of content works for you and what doesn't, and optimize from there. And we do have a business site it's business.pinterest.com. For the UK site, you can do /en-gb. And here we do provide a step-by-step guide on how to set up your business profile, how to implement your save buttons, and kind of how to get started on your boards. So this is also a good site to get started on.